All right. Well, this is our July 12th meeting, and you all should have gotten an agenda with the topics that we wanted to talk about tonight. They primarily relate to a couple of updates and then a discussion about possible projects. So let me just pull up the agenda. We can look at that real quick. So I wanted to update you on some of the projects that have been identified as priority projects, and as well as some efforts that the county is taking to make some positive impact on the Liberty Road corridor in conjunction with the action plan that we're helping to implement. And then we wanted to talk a little bit about this question of future capital projects. And if you were on the call last month, you know, we just touched on the fact that I've had some clarification on what we're able to use the funding that was given to this group to implement the plan, what we're able to use that for. So hopefully that'll take up the bulk of our meeting. So let me just dive right in here. I am going to take a second though to do a little bit of attendance, just so I have a record of who all is here. So we've got Kaylin. Kaylin, are you feeling better these days?
Much better, thank you.
Yay. Good to hear your voice.
Thank you.
All right, Linda and India. And I know Linda Dorsey Walker said that she's going to be coming from another meeting, so she's going to join us just a little bit late. Okay, so a couple of updates that I wanted to share with you. On the Litter Reduction Coordinating Committee, if you'll recall, this was a set of priority projects that the committee had identified in previous months that were aimed at trying to reduce litter, promote anti-littering types of behavior and messages. And so what I've done is pulled together a group of people from various county agencies, including highways and solid waste and Department of Economic Development, our Environmental Protection Office, and also code enforcement, although he was not able to join us at the meeting that I had a few weeks ago. And basically what we did there was get a whole rundown of all the different programs that possibly could be brought to bear in a particular area along the corridor to create sort of a coordinated approach to reducing litter. So I'm in the process of sort of getting more information about all of those. But basically what I think would be a good approach would be to take, 5 or 6 different programs that everything from community clean sweeps to working with businesses in particular areas to reduce the spread of litter off their site, and trying to do sort of a coordinated approach in a particular area and then move down the corridor little by little. So that's my proposal. I'm going to try to pull that together and float it by this committee that I pulled together. But before I do that, I did want to take this opportunity just to get your feedback on that kind of approach, doing a sort of a coordinated, almost like a focused effort in one area of the quarter and then sort of moving along and then hopefully cycling back and doing that maybe once or twice a year. Any thoughts, any response to something like that?
This is Sheila Lewis. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Sheila?
Um, you said this is something that they would do once a year going forward.
Well, I think the frequency is to be determined. I'm still trying to get more details on each of the programs to see if that's once or twice a year would be a workable thing for all of them.
I think it would be great if these agencies that were responsible for that issue, for example, about in an effort for litter reduction, to yearly sound great, to go and just doing a survey, identify any cans or areas where litter seems to be, accumulating. If it's a problem, the fact that they say it on any particular day doesn't mean, oh, it might only happen that day. If they see it on that day, it's happening regularly. That's why it was there that day. For them to say on a yearly basis, they would do that type of assessment. And the other thing is to see a list of exactly what they would be looking for. Would they be looking for accumulations of litter? Would they be looking for um, damaged cans that need to be replaced? Would they be looking for areas where a can should be placed that doesn't exist? So if they actually said on a yearly basis, we're going to be going through the Liberty Road corridor, and this is exactly what we're going to be looking for, it would be great if if they want us to like have some input into looking at things we feel they need to look at. The cans are one thing. The other thing was, I thought I heard you mention, were businesses that were not keeping their areas maintained.
Mhm.
They're going to say, what we'll do, we're going to also be identifying businesses where we see long grass or bushes that are not being controlled, and we are going to send them a letter or something. That'll be great. If that's something they will commit to doing once, at least once a year. I mean, it doesn't absolve people from like still calling in on the 311
Yeah,
about the
yeah.
issue, but we know that the county is going to be supportive and proactive. And this is something they said we will do once a year for the benefit of the community.
Yeah, I think that could be really helpful and effective, and uh, certainly if it's what I'm envisioning is also partnering those kinds of surveys and then the follow up to them with things like maybe neighborhood cleanups or I know DPWT has something called a community clean sweep, I think, where they come in and they'll work with the community associations to make sure that, for instance, all the cars are moved to one side of the street, and they can come in and they can do street sweeping and things like that. Everything from street sweeping to community cleanups to um, focused efforts, maybe like code enforcement types of things. So I think it could be really effective to have um, multiple programs sort of working at the same time to complement each other.
Oh, one more thing is when you mention all those things, I have been, in contact with, different staffs, and I've heard of all those things. But one thing that is lacking in all of those programs is that there is no coordinated and directed outreach to community associations. I mean, there is a county list. They don't even go to the county list and say, let me look at the community associations that's listed here and let me contact them and say, these are the services, these are the events that we're offering that we want you to partner with the county to do, to say, come on. I mean, they don't even use the list. A lot of times when I called, it's like, well, if you call in, I mean, at some point they need to be a little bit more proactive if they want the community associations to do these things. There's so many things going on. For example, right now, like Linda's at another meeting. I could be at that meeting. There's so many things going on that, they need to, if they really want communities to participate and say, okay, we don't hear from you guys, they need to be proactive. The county asked the community associations to submit their names, their contacts, and where they are for a reason. And I suppose that reason was that, okay, we will have it so when the county has an event or an activity, we can contact you, and not just, okay, you guys come on and you should know us. You contact us and ask us about it. And that's has been happening in the past. It's like they want you to contact them.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And it raises another suggestion that I wanted to pursue, which is hearing of all these great programs, surfaced the idea of putting together some kind of a litter reduction toolkit or something like that, that then can be shared regularly with all of the community contacts, so that if there are programs that are run on a sort of on the basis where you request the service, there's not a schedule for hitting every neighborhood, then putting that information in the hands of the community association folks on a regular basis, I think would be really helpful. And putting it all in one place is another thing that I'd like to try to pursue as part of this.
And perhaps creating a calendar. I'm assuming that this is a staff thing. This is something that they know when they're going to do it. And if they had a calendar that they sent out at the beginning of the year, then community associations can say, okay, let me put this on our calendar to participate. They send it out for bulk trash. They send it out twice a year, 2 months ahead of time. This is your bulk trash date. I mean,
Yeah.
they should be able to do a calendar and say, these are when we're going to have this activity. This is when we're going to have this. This is when you have this. Send the calendar out to the community association so they can sign up for it ahead of time. They could put it in the community calendars.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I will see anything that has a schedule associated with it. We'll try to include that information with this toolkit. All right, so stay tuned. I will keep working on pulling this together, and of course, we'll fold you guys into the that interface with the community and how we can get this message out to everybody and make it be a really effective and helpful approach to reducing litter in the corridor. Okay, next up for updates are our favorite subject, trash cans. They're still coming. The last update that I got was they are in the shipment process. They were supposed to be arriving in the port any day, but I haven't heard anything else and have not gotten any updates from our solid waste folks that they were in. But they're in transit and they should be installed soon, hopefully. I wish I had a more definitive time frame for you guys, but they're on their way. The other update relates to benches, and this is, I know we had already done a survey of where there may be benches that could be replaced. I wanted to let you know that the state that the county is in the process of finalizing a memorandum of understanding with the state for maintenance of benches. The state does have money to replace benches that are already out there but are in disrepair or maybe for whatever reason need to be replaced. The county just needs to execute the MOU so that they're responsible for doing the maintenance on those benches once they're installed. So hopefully we'll be able to make some replacements of benches that are not in such great shape, and we'll have new trash cans, and hopefully that'll make a really nice transit corridor for people who are using, particularly using the buses. Let's see, where's my next update? State facade improvement grant. I wanted to let you all know that the county applied for $500,000 for facade improvements that would be done on Liberty Road, and this is part of a grant program, a new grant program that the Department of Housing and Community Development is offering through their community legacy funds. It's a competitive program, so of course we don't know how much, if anything, we'll get, but hopefully we'll have some money available to work with shopping center owners and business owners to undertake some facade improvements on their businesses. So keep your fingers crossed. Of course, just for timing on that, we probably won't know until the fall whether we got anything, and if we did, how much. And then the last update that I have relates to the West Baltimore County Redevelopment Authority. You all may have heard that that was recently passed by the county council, and essentially what it is creating an entity that will have significant redevelopment powers that allow it to do things like purchase land and assemble parcels where you have a whole bunch of small parcels that need to be redeveloped, and then undertake those construction projects. So this is significant authority, and that's a big move for West Baltimore. My apologies for the dog. It's going to be, I think there are 11 members. Is that right? 11 members. Let me see. I have the legislation up here. The legislation is available on the county's website. Let me just verify the number of members here. So the Redevelopment Authority will be able to do things that normally only are available to the county to do. So the area covers Liberty Road, Rolling Road, Route 40, and the city-county line. So pretty big chunk of land in there. Of course, one of the big sites that's within that is the Security Square Mall. And if you've been tracking with that, you know that that's a significant interest in terms of redevelopment over there. I think there is some kind of a press event or something like that tomorrow, so you may see some additional news about this new entity and sort of what the hopes are for it. Any questions or, oh, let me just, I found the membership information. So it's 11 public members and 9 ex officio members. So the ex officio members are generally elected officials, and then the public members are folks that that they would nominate to be part of the Redevelopment Authority. Questions or comments on any of those updates? All right,
Well, I do have a comment. I just wait for someone else to say anything. I don't want to do all the talking.
go for it.
I did see it, and it did sound like it was it was it included staffing positions and funding and that type of thing. So it didn't appear to be something like a work group. It seemed to be something that the county was establishing for a significant workload and for a significant amount of time. And when I did see the areas, I was concerned about security more, not because I didn't want security mall taken care of, but because Liberty Road was on the water. I remember initially when this started a couple of years ago, Liberty Road was a big focus of that issue. And now, when they actually established the water in the legislation, it does include Security Mall. And although there are great plans for Security Mall, and I'm not against it, but I'm just kind of concerned that the Liberty Road is kind of pushed on the side in um, that plan and that um, work group. And I didn't know what we could do to ensure that we get our fair share out of it.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know. That may be something that will come out a little bit in terms of well, any press related to it, as well as how this group sort of starts to coalesce. My particular experience, from what I know of redevelopment authorities in general, they tend to be focused on very large projects. So the kinds of projects that you could only do if you had an entity that was able to buy land, sell land, assemble land, undertake construction projects, that kind of thing. You see a lot of that in well, I'm thinking of like some downtown Baltimore projects where you've got um, uh, I don't know if this is true, but something like a stadium or something like that. That's the stadium authority, I know. But it's the same kind of idea of having a separate entity that has these um, uh, large powers invested in them to do significant redevelopment work. So it could be a matter of scale. Um, but I hear your concerns, Sheila, and I think that would be something to just kind of keep our eye on as we learn more about what the vision for this redevelopment authority is.
And as we go forward, the only thing I can think that this group had identified that might fall under that authority, because I don't think we have the authority to do it, would be when we talked about a gateway entrance for Liberty Road. And we had identified the area near Northern Parkway because of the way those lots are situated. And there was a question of some of us the city and some of us the county. That
Mhm.
that was a project that this group did identify that they said they wanted. That if it were to be done, it would be have to be done under a group like that. And I think when a couple of years ago, when this um, West Baltimore County Redevelopment Authority kind of, coalesced into an idea. That was one of the issues that came up. It's like it's going to take more than a group of people saying we wanted the county getting money because of the issues involved around, doing that gateway project. And even if they want to focus on security, because that is a big bang for your money, um, is there some way that this group can get their attention to say, please do something about the gateway for Liberty Road at the area where we had identified, which was there near Northern Parkway.
Yeah, thank you. I think that that's a good point, and we'll, like I said, we'll try to see how things start to shake out in terms of the organization of the authority and what their um, what the vision is for it, and try to put that on their radar screen.
In listening to Sheila, I'm wondering what happened with the Nelson, is it called the Nelson group? It was a young lady, she was a part of this
Yeah.
group and then she moved on. What's going on with that?
So Carla Nelson Chambers was, she was part of this group, and then her consulting firm was hired to kind of guide the process of forming a community development organization for the Liberty Road corridor. So that's why she had to sort of excuse herself from this committee. That actually, they had been meeting on a regular basis over the spring, and their work is just wrapping up. That's the work group that was formed to basically flesh out what this community development organization would look like, what it would be doing, that sort of stuff. I believe that there is a final meeting for that work group. Let's say it's next week. Once that is complete, and I'll have to check on the exact status of things, but I think that they are now moving into the phase, if it hasn't already started, of filing the articles of incorporation to get 501c3 status, so that that entity can actually do things like apply for grants or administer grants, and try to bring about some change through those powers. I think they're going to be hiring an executive director initially, who's going to help guide that work. And then I don't know if I haven't seen the final recommendations, but I would imagine there might be some thought to having some maybe additional staff people down the line who can help keep that organization going, and working with the business owners, the communities along the corridor for some positive change. I don't know. I know, Sheila, you were part of that work group. I don't know if anybody else, Sharon, maybe. If anybody else who is part of that work group wants to jump in and give an update, feel free.
Yes, I was a part of the work group, and their next meeting is next Wednesday on the 19th. They have selected the officers, and I believe at the meeting on the 19th, they were going to reveal their selections and proceed exactly as you say. Once they will, announce the selections of who's going to be on the board of directors, and the plan is exactly as you stated. That's what's going to happen. So the big thing is just telling us who is actually will be on the board of directors.
I'm sorry, can you say the last piece about the board of directors again?
Yes, the meeting next Wednesday is when they're going to announce the board of directors. And once they announce the board of directors, exactly the process that you stated is supposed to happen with that group.
Excellent. Yeah, and Sheila had asked me via email about the relationship between that organization and this committee. And my response to her was, I think, well, since the CDO will have some different authority, like I said, there'll be a 501c3 that will be able to do things that this committee doesn't have that ability to do. I think that their roles will be a little bit different, but as that CDO is formed and gets going, I think we'll want to revisit the issue of how this committee interfaces with the CDO so that we're not duplicating efforts, so that there's good communication, that sort of thing. But right now, I think we need to wait for them to get some steam going and bring an executive director on board, that sort of thing.
How are
India,
they,
you have.
yeah, how are they picking the board of directors and how are they getting the word out?
To get the board of directors, it was a large work group, approximately 15 or 20 people. They came to us as the community representatives and say, can you nominate people that you think would be good for the board of directors? And they based it on that. Whatever nominations that people submitted, whom they recommended or nominated for board of directors is how they selected a board of directors.
And then that group will make the decision or?
Yes, the work group, Carla Nelson's business, this is something that she does, was tasked through the county to pull together with the big work group, came up with vision statement, mission statement, some duties and responsibilities, and her business group was tasked with the effort of pulling that together and formulating it into would be a standard procedure or process for identifying the job description and that kind of thing for the board of directors and for the officers on the board of directors, and pulling that together so it come up with a CDO, which is a CDO itself is not uncommon in what its purpose and function and the way it operates. But for this area, it was the first time they've ever had one, and her company was tasked with the county with creating that.
Yeah, I'm aware of all that. I guess my concern is the selection of the board of directors and that it's a fair representation of, you know, what our needs may be. That's my concern.
And you're right to have that concern because that's always my concern whenever the county puts together anything is like, how do we know you are representing the interests of the community? How we keep that focused? And that was a serious concern. I did recommend someone. I don't know if he was selected or not. I haven't checked with him on that or not. I did recommend someone whom I thought had a great focus on the communities, particularly the communities of Liberty Road inside of the Beltway. I did recommend Aaron Barnett because he does have that focus for the communities in lower part in Liberty Road. I don't know if he was selected or not, but that was my nomination because I was concerned about keeping that focus, that community, that area of Liberty Road in focus. I don't know who the other persons who were nominated. I just know who I nominated and I know why I nominated him.
Right. Okay.
I think one thing, if I could just jump in, I was only at the first meeting, but I know just having listened to some of the way that this has evolved from conversations in the office, I do know that number one, there was a pretty big focus on making sure that the work group who was putting together the almost like the criteria for board members and that sort of thing were local themselves and representative of the interests of the corridor. And so hopefully that input, that local input and the things that they felt were really important to look for in potential board members then filtered through into the nomination and selection process. So I think that's how Carla had set it up, and that was the hope that would be a representative process because of both the work group and then who eventually gets selected for the CDO. Okay, so we will revisit this question of how this group wants to interface with the CDO at a future meeting once we have a little bit more information and a sense of direction for that group, and what the prospect is for the types of projects that they'll be undertaking versus the kinds of things that we've been talking about. Let's move on to our conversation about future capital projects. So I wanted to, first of all, offer a bit of an apology in terms of the discussions that we've been having about the projects that this group wants to see undertaken to help implement the action plan. We had $250,000 that was given for plan implementation by the county, and we've been trying to identify some projects that money could be directed towards. Over the course of the last several months, we've offered a few ideas up, and that was without my full understanding of the eligible projects. As it turns out, the money is reserved for capital projects, and capital projects have to be bricks and mortar types of things that you could foresee being having a longevity of about 15 years or so, things that can't get picked up and moved around, that kind of thing. So this is why we've run into a little bit of trouble in terms of getting traction with the idea of hiring a consultant to work on a branding sort of strategic plan and some of the types of things that would go along with that: signage, banners, wayfinding, all of that, because planning is not a capital project, but you need to do planning in order to get to the capital side of things. So I am in the process of trying to find an alternative source of funding that we could use to undertake that planning. In the meantime, I wanted to talk to you about any ideas that you have for capital projects that we could undertake on the corridor that are helping to implement the action plan. And on the agenda, I listed 3 areas where, as I looked through the action plan, it seemed like they were pretty definitely a capital project. So the 3 areas are parks and rec facilities, and there are several recommendations in the plan that talk about enhancing existing parks and rec facilities, providing new ones, and making recreational amenities more available and accessible to people. So that's one option we could talk about. There were also recommendations related to street lighting. So we could talk about whether if there are areas where street lights would be desirable that they're not right now. And then the third one was street trees, which I think there are a few really good programs already in place that that we could tap into if there were particular areas where street trees would be desirable. So those are the ones that I pulled out directly from the plan. And I'd like to hear your response to those and any ideas that you have for other projects that we might want to consider. The last thing I'll say about this before I open up for discussion is we have $177,000-ish available still after the trash cans project had money allocated to it. And so for the $177,000, that could be used for new projects. It could also be used if you're aware of any projects that say have been proposed by, let's say, Parks and Rec, but they haven't been funded, and so they haven't been able to get underway. We can also share that money with another county entity to implement a project that they've got sort of waiting in the wings. So so I'll open it up for your thoughts, any discussion, and ideas for some capital projects that we could use to enhance the Liberty Road corridor.
Daphne, are you saying that the signage that we have been talking about before, that cannot be part of that project of the capital?
The signage itself is a capital project. The problem that we're running into is the kind of preliminary planning and design work that will get us to those signs is not capital. So that's where I'm trying to see if we can use some funding from another pot of money to undertake that first, and then have some and then tap into the capital funding for the actual physical things.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to throw in my 2 cents for this money we have left, that we specifically make sure it affects Liberty Road. I know you said, you could join in on another project. If that project's not on Liberty Road, I don't think we should do it.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, I meant if there's anything that that is within that.
Okay.
Yeah. India?
Just two things. Do we have a list of some of these capital projects to see what we might be interested in partnering with? And my second thing is, I like the idea, of course, you said the treescaping, right?
Street trees, yeah.
Yeah, that my concern with that is I don't know how much effort is put into making sure that the selection of trees, that they're not trees whose roots are going to pull up the sidewalks, or are going to branch out so far into the streets and all that. So if they were like small flowering trees or just evergreens, so there would be greenery year round, something like that, I would be in favor of, but nothing massive.
Right. Yeah, I believe that there are, there's a list of approved street tree species. And they're probably, I'm going to guess that they have differing criteria in terms of how much space you have to plant them, what that tree well area needs to be in order for it to be a healthy tree.
Right.
But I'm curious, are there any particular areas that come to mind that we could look at for introducing street trees where they're lacking right now?
Two things. One, Sharon would like to know what is the date that we have to use that 144,000?
So I don't know that there is an expiration date associated with it, but I will definitely confirm that. But since it's county money, as opposed to funding from, I know some of the federal funding that's available as a result of the pandemic, the ARPA
Mhm.
funds, those have to be expended by a certain time. I have not heard anything in terms of an expiration date for this funding, but I will confirm that.
Okay. You good, Sharon? I guess so. All right.
Thank you.
The other thing, the question I think India said was, what was the list? And I went back looking for that today. And there was an improvement proposal location, and it was on a meeting February 23rd, 2022, where Going had sent to us a list of improvements. It included the recycling bins, street lights, trees, bus stop and shelters, sidewalks, benches, and trash. And of course, two of those things are on your list. And it included the street location. What was it connected to? I'm looking at trees right now.
Okay.
And whether it was an upgrade, a tree that needed to be replaced, or it was new construction.
So you said that was from the February 22 meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me see if I remember any of my skills. It's been a long time since I had to work.
Oh, I feel bad.
Okay.
I was saying, I'm sorry, but I'm still one of those who needs paper to keep up with stuff.
Well, I can appreciate that because I print a lot of stuff out, like the
Yeah.
agenda.
Yeah. 'Cause if I had printed it out, I would probably say I can go back to it and, I would have realized that I had it.
Well, yeah, the reason my head is down is because I'm writing my notes as opposed to typing them on the computer. Marilyn, I can pull up that information and also talk to Gone about.
You say that now as I hit send.
Well,
Say that's how long it took me.
So it sounds like maybe there was already some evaluation done about where
Yes.
street trees could go.
Yes.
Okay.
As well as the lighting, street lights.
Okay.
Hopefully, the file that I sent over included all of the tabs on the bottom.
Let me see.
And I wasn't going to embarrass myself by sending it to everyone. You need paper or something, baby girl. Get your board over there so that ink does not get in the carpet.
All right, it's not coming through to me yet, but I am sure it's on its way.
I hope
so. So I will take a look at that and see which locations. Oh, there we go. See which locations are identified there. And then I can circle back around with you guys in terms of what oh yeah, that came through just perfectly. So I can circle back around with you guys in terms of what the costs would be to do the street trees and the street lights that are identified here. And then we can maybe make a decision in terms of if that's something that you want. Just confirming
And
that
if you
that's
could,
something that you want to do.
and if you could send that to everyone so that they
Mm-hmm.
have it, and if they choose to print it out, they can.
Sure, I will do that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Absolutely. Anybody else have specific, are there any specific locations that you want to make sure are on this list for consideration?
I do have some things.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about trees and not about lights. um, I pulled this from the quality of life work group once we went to the work groups and whatever, and we had to rank the things that we wanted, that kind of thing. And I looked back at it and I pulled these from that list.
Okay.
And um, one of the focus was about pedestrian safety. And my travels up and down Liberty Road identified for me a couple of pedestrian issues that to me seem problematic. I don't know, traffic and engineering might come up with a different assessment, but to me they seem problematic. Um, and on Liberty Road, from Brenbrook Road up to Greens Lanes, there is no intersection. It's just straight road. However, there's a bus stop. So a pedestrian who needs to cross the street, either to catch the bus or to get off the bus and whatever, they have to stand in that turning lane. I mean, they're literally taking their life in their hands to get across the street. And what brought it to my attention was during the pandemic, I saw a young lady, I'm assuming it's the mom, with her two kids. And it's like, okay, they were like running against the westbound traffic to stand in the middle of the turning lane to get over to the other side to dodge the east side traffic. And I was thinking that at some point along that area, there needs to be a pedestrian island installed. So people who need to cross the road either to catch the bus or get off the bus. Um, I would like to offer that. Since you said that we could use some of this money to support a county program, and that's something that the county would normally install to put the money in, but they might not have money for. And if they could do an assessment about that. And the other one was from Rolling Road, in fact, at the intersection of Rolling Road and Courtly Roads. Um, there is a bus stop there, but there is no pedestrian island. So people frequently like dodge traffic to get across and to either catch the bus going up and down. And that's another place where I thought there needed to be a pedestrian island so that people can safely cross because it's across from the bus stop, but it's just this wide stretch of road. Um, and also there is a bus stop going west, somewhere along, I forgot the name of the road, but going from Brenbrook to Greens Lane, and it's just a bus stop. There's no bench, no trash can or anything. So anyone catching the bus, it's like they're just standing at the bus stop, and it's in front of housing. So I thought it would be nice to have a bench there. And of course, if they put a bench there, there needs to be a can beside that bench. Those were the things I pulled out.
Yeah.
And the other thing, and I'm not sure, the other thing, and this was added on about a larger sign for the Randallstown Community Center because people miss it. If you're not familiar with, you miss it going up and coming down because
That's
of
true.
the other signage. You just miss it. So if there was a larger sign and I didn't, and and since I think if we put a sign up, we would last longer than 15 years. I was thinking about that as a capital improvement.
Yeah.
That's true.
No, I
Yeah.
think that would qualify. And I did do some research into those suggestions, and I have a couple of things to respond to. First of all, the signage for the community center, I think, is a great project to pursue. So I am in the process of trying to make contact with somebody in our property management division to talk about what our options might be for enhancing the signage, making that community center easier to find. Um, the bench I looked into as well, um, and that's one that I'll need to talk to MTA a little bit more about. Generally, they only put those benches at stops where there is a high enough ridership to suggest that it's needed, and those particular stops between Brenbrook and Greens Lane have very low ridership. Um, so I'd like to maybe talk to some of our friends over at M.MTA and see what's the threshold that they're looking for. Um, I also know that there is then a question with new benches in terms of adding them to our list of things that the county is taking on for maintenance. So a couple of things that we can explore with that. Um, and then on the islands, this gets a little tricky um, because installing those islands is something that, because Liberty Road is a state road, that's something that the county can't actually do. Um, but the county can advocate for them through their annual, what's known as a priority letter. Um, so every year the county sends their priority projects, the list of priority projects, to the state for inclusion in the state transportation plan, which is where the funding flows from. So so I'm going to reach out to our folks at the Department of Public Works and Transportation um, to make sure that these particular locations are on their radar screen and to see if we can get them included in that priority letter for consideration for funding.
The issue about the bench, if MTA says there is not that the ridership does not meet the threshold for them to put a bench there. Hopefully, we were able to put a bench there because one of the initiatives also for quality of life is to have Liberty Road to be more walkable. That's one of the reasons why they make sure the sidewalks are there, so it's more walkable. That's another reason for the trees, because when there's the trees there, people can walk in the shade. And if MTA says, no, that doesn't reach the threshold for a bench, if it's possible that this group can put a bench there, not just because it's a bus stop, but also if you're talking about making the area more walkable with the trees, then people have a place to stop and rest. If they're walking up, they can stop, they can sit, they can rest and get up and continue their journey. So it's a bus stop, but if they say, hey, it doesn't meet the criteria, then under the criteria of making the area more walker friendly, pedestrian friendly, for the environment, that kind of thing, I hope we can consider adding a bench.
Okay.
Sheila, in that file that I sent to Daphne,
Mm-hmm.
there sidewalk and benches is also a tab included there. And I believe that the item that you talked about where there was no crosswalk on one of these says east side, but it does say that it's a state road, and the other a state road again. No crosswalk was needed. So, and then here's another one I just saw, no crosswalk. So if you take a look at this, your items may very well be on this sidewalk tab.
Yeah, because I remember this was a discussion about, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and why we're going to do it. I mean, in French, we evolved into the group. We had the work groups and all that kind of thing, and that that came out of that.
Marilyn, do you remember where where the spreadsheet that you shared with me came from? Is
Yes.
that something that this group put together, or something that Gonet had created and
I
shared with you?
believe she put it together based on input from the group. What I'm actually going to do is forward. I can do that. I think. Here, I'm going to forward the entire document to you.
Okay. I feel like given some of the fields that are in here, which include global ID.
Yeah, that came from her. I wasn't sure if maybe.
I think there was, if I recall the description that she gave me, there was a team of people who went out and they actually had handheld GPS devices that they were using to record the conditions all up and down the corridor. So I'm wondering if that assessment came from that project. But I can also ask Gonet when I get back in the office.
And I have one more question. And I'm not quite clear on it. I remember we had talked about when we were talking about branding, Liberty Road, and we talked about signage, and we identified the I don't know what you call them, the signs up there that for the communities that already exist on Liberty Road. I think there was 7 of them. I'm not sure.
Flags or something, I think they were called.
I don't know. There's I don't there are stone.
Oh, okay.
They're like monument signs.
Right, that's stone, right.
I got you.
And there was, and we talked about possibly, possibly replacing the medallion part because we couldn't redo the whole thing, but basically replacing the medallion part with some kind of updated or more attractive, signage for the communities. Would that fall under this?
Well, I think the question, it could, but I think then the question becomes, are we kind of verging into this larger branding project that we had discussed? We wanted to sort of do some strategic planning first to undertake. So for instance, replacing that medallion, is that going to require, are we talking about revamping the logo? Because right now I think it's just like a Liberty Bell or something like that. If we're revamping the logo, then we start to get into a discussion about, well, what's that logo going to be? What is it? What do we want to try to convey about the corridor? How is it going to be integrated into other pieces of signage or other branding pieces, if you will? And so that gets us then back to that question of, can we hire a consultant who will help do that kind of, orchestrate that kind of discussion and come up with some designs that then could be transferred into this new medallion. So I think it's that's where it just gets a little bit tricky. We could just hire a designer to create a new logo and put it on the replace the medallions. That would probably count as a capital project. But the question is, how does that then integrate with a bigger vision for what this could look like from one end of the corridor to another? And that's where I think I heard from the committee the last time we talked about this, that it was important to try to take that big picture look at things first, and then move into the individual components of a design that could be implemented based on that bigger picture.
That makes sense. If we don't do that, is it possible at least to get landscaping upgraded around those signage where they exist now?
I will have to confirm that. The things that we had talked about doing with those signs were enhanced landscaping, cleaning, like
Cleaning them.
sort of polishing it up a little bit,
Right.
and potentially installing like solar powered lighting or something like that. I was told that all of that was operating as opposed to capital.
So we can't use the money for that.
That's what I was told. I can circle back around and try to get clarity on the landscaping issue, because I feel like that's what I was told.
Right. Well, if we put a bush in that will agree to live for 15 years, I mean, the landscaping has really deteriorated around those signs. So freshen it up with landscape would be nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can ask again. For sure.
And when we talk about the trees, India also she made a good point about the trees. We don't want trees with the roots that are going to come up and make walking the sidewalks hazardous. And the other thing is the way they're installed. A lot of times they'll just, dig a concrete, take out the concrete, put the tree in. And sometimes those islands just become litter traps. I mean, when they talk about installing the trees, can they put them in some type of planters, whether it's going to be a concrete planter or something, some kind of stone planter that will in itself have a better appearance than just this hole in the ground that you got a tree coming out of?
But that's going to be your litter trap.
Well, what I've seen from they've got some on Ricestown Road, and they don't attract a lot of litter because litter goes across the ground. It blows across the ground. And because they're higher, I mean, it does have some trash in it, but one, it doesn't collect as much because they're higher. And they also look better because those holes in the ground, when the grass gets high on them, no one takes care of it. It's like, who cuts it? The business owners don't keep it cut and all that kind of thing. But the higher ones, they just look more attractive. They don't have those type of issues, because usually they do have some type of mulching or something around them that they don't appear to have those kind of issues.
Sheila, where on Ricestown Road are they planted in the planters? I'm trying to think.
Above McHenry Street, above from Staples to
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Think about, nothing against my black people, but they are ignorant and act like barbarians. And that Liberty Road is our people, and they're ignorant. I'll leave it at that. Up that part, you got a different kind of.
So what are they going to do?
In those communities really, really respect their streets around there. And you know that from going to the armory meetings, all those folks that show up for that and their concerns and how they try to keep their community. So I'm just saying, our people have gotten to be real ignorant.
Well, I hear what you're saying,
Hmm?
but I hear what you're saying, but I think that there's got to be something better than the whole. I mean, because they just catch, they just catch the
They
litter,
do.
and that
I agree.
now, for example, and maybe it might be selective. For example, maybe part of it is cooperation with the businesses. For example, if there were trees in front of the Woodmore Shopping Center, and they were put in the islands, maybe the shopping center management would agree to, okay, we'll look at them because, like I said, they just don't catch it. Now, what do you think they're going to do? Sit on them? I mean,
Yeah.
well, if as long as we don't have, that's what I was thinking. They don't have, they're not high enough to sit down. To, like, if I get down here, can I get up? And but on the other side of it, when we talk about walkability, um, for Liberty Road, to have something that if a person is walking and they were tired and they sat on the side of it, they're not going to knock the tree down. I mean, but that's something. I mean, to I don't know. I'm thinking differently. I'm thinking when I was a child, it wasn't a big issue if you sat on a low wall or something like that because you're resting, then you walk up again. And if someone were to sit there to say the rest and to walk on, they can't knock the tree down. I mean, I don't know, but it's
Sheila,
got to be
But
it's got to be something
tell me
better.
individuals,
again.
go ahead, Dan.
I just wanted to, you had mentioned a location where you thought there was a good example of that. Can you tell me that again so I can?
It's on Ricestown Road, between McHenry and Oak Court.
Okay.
So McHenry is where the Staples is. It's,
Okay.
they have a light there, and then there's the islands there. So, but there's got to be a better way. Maybe if they when they install the trees, maybe, but I don't know. Maybe if they install them with a grate or something around them, because that hole of the long grass and it's just so attractive. Something that when you put the tree in, it just has to be something more than just the tree in a hole.
Gotcha. I think that's the kind of thing that I'm sure the folks who are in our uh, environmental protection and sustainability office and our landscape architect could weigh in on in terms of both like the tree species that we're talking about, but also the best ways to plant them so that they stay healthy. I know sometimes containerized stuff gets really tricky in terms of the root growth that's needed to create a really strong, healthy tree. But that's why I wanted to get a visual on what you're thinking of, and maybe ask some folks who know more about this sort of stuff than I do what their take on some of those different alternatives might be.
Mm-hmm.
Daphne, this is Kaylin. I was thinking about another location that would be good for trees. We were talking about how the facade and everything of the Gwynn Oak Post Office needs to be redone, and I think it would be nice to have some trees around there. There are a lot of trees around the Offutt Road Post Office,
Mm,
and I think that it would be nice to have some around the Gwynn Oak.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Now, about 30 years ago, I guess now, there were trees on the opposite side of the road, but the businesses cut them down, and the county allowed them to do that. So, I mean, if the county is going to put the trees in, I mean, they need to be some consequences if business owners decide on their own to cut them down because the county let them do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming that if we plant new trees, they're going to be in the right of way, and the county will be responsible for maintaining their, making sure they're watered, especially in that first year, that sort of thing. But I don't know what the like how they keep track of things once they're established. That would be good information to have.
But in front of the post office would be ideal to have trees. I think
Yeah.
it just enhances the landscape for to see trees as opposed to just all concrete and asphalt.
Agreed. All right. Well, I think we've got some good ideas going here. I will share out the information that Marilyn emailed over, so everybody can kind of see the locations that had already been identified. And I will begin looking at what some costs associated with doing both street trees and street lights at the locations that have been identified are. And I will also follow up on a couple of things that Sheila had mentioned in terms of this bench location. I've already started reaching out on the improved community center signage. I will share information with DPWT about the need for islands, and also just follow up with them to see is there anything that we can do to advance those ideas. And I will circle back around on this question of better landscaping or enhanced landscaping at the monument signs that already exist. I'm also going to verify if there is a time frame within which we need to spend the money that's been allocated. Okay, so we're almost at 8 o'clock. There are just a few things that I wanted to touch on by way of wrapping up here. Just a reminder that we had talked about moving to quarterly meetings after the July meeting. And I think given the summer holidays that people take and things like that, that's probably a good move. In the meantime, anything that I'm able to come up with related to these projects, I think we can do some electronic back and forth on, especially if it's the kind of thing that we're looking to get committee approval to move forward with certain projects. But one thing that I do want to also do for some upcoming meetings is at a certain point, just kind of pull the members who are on our distribution list to see if they are still interested in participating in this committee. I know it's summer break time and a lot of people are out of town or have lots of other plans, but the last several meetings we've had some pretty thin attendance. It does raise the question for me about the need to make sure that this group is really representational of the whole corridor and all the different communities and even business interests, which we don't have represented on the committee. So I'd like to start with this idea of seeing who on our distribution list is still interested in participating, and then think about as we look to the future how we could either grow this committee or have it morph into some other ways that we could draw people in and gain some community participation. I will note that that this action plan is due for renewal in 2025, and that process actually starts in 2024. So at some point next year, we'll be doing some additional outreach and community meetings and things like that. So hopefully that will give us an opportunity to engage with a larger audience, and potentially some additional people who are interested in being partners in this effort.
So do you want us over this break to solicit for new members or new or residents who may be interested in joining?
That could be a good, it could be a good way to go. Let me think about that in terms of how bringing additional members on board might work with this, the renewal of the Sustainable Communities Plan. If we're able to make them work together, that might be different. But I have to think through that and talk through it with Gonay a little bit more before I think I can give you a good answer. Okay, so our next meeting then would be set for October 11th, which sounds ridiculously far away, but lo and behold, it is only 3 months away. So in the meantime, like I said, I'll have some back and forth with you electronically. And if we decide that we reach a point where we really want to have an actual meeting to make some decisions or what have you, we can definitely schedule that in the meantime. Sound good?
That sounds good. I just wanted to ask very quickly. There was a gentleman on this committee that recently died, and I can't think of his name. But I was
Aaron
wondering.
Plymouth. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was his name?
Aaron Plymouth.
Aaron. And so I was just wondering if there was anybody on the committee who was kind of close to him that could, mention something about him. I remember someone emailed us to say that he had died, but I never heard any more after in terms of funeral and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I had shared something about his memorial service arrangements, and we were supposed to have a little bit of a time at the end of our June meeting to do some remembrances, but we only had a few people, so
right.
that would be something that would definitely be worth building some time in at our next meeting if we've got a fair number of people on board, because he was such a large figure in the community with lots of impact that probably people don't even realize can be attributed to him for sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, it's Sharon Hendricks. So I can tell you, I did go to the funeral because he was involved in Northwest in the community for a number of years. I knew him for over 30 years. And it was just wonderful, the outpouring of the community. And one of his sons actually reached out to Northwest, and I'm going to be meeting with his son because he really just wants to be involved in the community as well. So his son is named Paul Plymouth. He has 2 sons. But, I think it'd be a wonderful idea just to do a little tribute to him at the next meeting.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
thank you.
For sure. Thanks, Sharon. All right, folks. Well, I thank you for good discussion tonight, and I will send out a summary of our conversation, as well as any follow-up that I have from these items that have been suggested as potential next projects. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your summer. And I will see you in October. All right.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.